Hey parents, let's talk chronic ear infections. Let's just talk ear infections and what's actually causing them in the first place. Let's get you the answers that honestly you should be getting in the pediatrician's office, the urgent care, and the ER, because ear infections and respiratory infections as a whole are one of the top 3 leading reasons for visits to the pediatrician and the emergency room. It happens millions of times for millions of kids every single year, and we've been dealing with this, and we actually have known the science behind ear infections and what's really actually causing them for a long time. We know that they're not bacterial, so we know that we're vastly still today with data and information and research all over the place. We know today we're vastly overusing antibiotics and opening up a whole nother can of worms for your kids' chronic challenges later on. But this is a conversation for you, because if you've been up late at night just watching your kiddo struggle, not be able to sleep, fever, pulling on the ears, you better believe that pulls on your heartstrings. And it's really, this video is really for you if your kiddo is struggling with chronic or recurrent ear infections and you're going through this again and again. Every time the weather shifts or they get into teething a little bit, you know that a cold, congestion, ear infections, antibiotics is coming, and hopefully we found this for you before. But even if we did after, this video will still help you. Hopefully we found it before multiple rounds of antibiotics not only didn't fix the issue, but made it worse, and then your kiddo went for ear tube surgery. Even if your child has had chronic ear infections to the degree of having 1, 2, the latest new patient I took in at my clinic had 4 rounds of tubes put in. Number 3 and number 4 were supposedly permanent tubes that his body rejected and kicked out, because nothing that antibiotics do and nothing that surgeries do anything to get to the root cause of what's really causing ear infections, which is exactly what we're going to break down in this video. So what I want to do is make this a very educational, very simple video for you to make sense of, but we're also going to make sure we talk you through the real anatomy, neurophysiology, and give you the real science behind what's going on with chronic ear infections. So I'm going to switch over to my iPad for just a second, and let's just review what I would call the 3 predominant theories that are out there. So number 1 is what we call the medical theory. Now, the medical theory really, it's crazy that I still got to go through this, but the standard pediatrician is going to explain away chronic or even acute ear infections to parents and just say, it's just, your kid's ear eustachian tube is just probably a little more horizontal than it should be and a little shorter or whatever than it should be. It's not some malfunctioning IKEA coffee table that you put together inappropriately. Our kids are not designed to have anything dysfunctioning. Our kids are not designed to have any infections or illness coming in. Gravity has very little to do with actually draining the fluid out of the ears. The most important take home from this video is that moving fluid through the ears relies on that exact word, movement. It has little to do with gravity. So this whole medical theory that's still decades later, they're still rolling out there again and again. It's just as out of this world, not close to being what's really going on as you can get. There's a lot of stuff, as you could probably imagine, as a neurologically focused pediatric chiropractor who is obsessed with root cause instead of just stuffing down symptoms with medications. There's a lot that frustrates us about just how outdated and still incomplete medical science is. But if there's one place you can probably feel it really early in this video, it's this one with ear infections, because these aren't complicated. The science behind what's causing chronic ear infections is really simple. It's really black and white. This iPad in 5 minutes is going to explain it to you, and I promise you will get you in the direction you need to go to get your kiddo to the place where they can get through these chronic ear infections and get healthy and resilient again without antibiotics, without more surgeries. Now, so this one, so if we're playing Family Feud, right, and you're throwing guesses out there, have a little fun with that. Not the case. Not really what's going on at all. Now, the second one, I'm going to give this one a half a mark. So I'm not crossing it all the way out. So what we would call the natural health theory. Now, as chiropractors, we are all about natural health, nutritional health, and so forth. But in a lot of families, once you've probably gone through a couple of rounds of antibiotics or you're facing tubes and you definitely don't want your kiddo to have a surgery, you have probably gone gluten-free, casein-free, red dye number 40-free, because you probably got online awesomely, accurately, and read that inflammation is the root of ear infections. Inflammation is the root of respiratory infections. And inflammation often is caused by not healthy foods, gluten, dairy, those sort of things. That is an absolutely accurate theory, and there's some really good neurophysiology behind that, but it's incomplete. That's all I want you to know from this video is the whole concept around dairy and toxins and food allergies. It's absolutely part of this puzzle. It's just not the whole puzzle. What we find again and again, so we're going to switch to green to say, okay, that's the one we got to go with. What we find all the time, and I promise, even though it says neuroscience, and that might be like, how nerdy are we going here? We're going to keep it really simple. What is really, really causing so many chronic ear infections is just simply what my Iowa farmer upbringing would say is poor plumbing, poor drainage. See, there's all of this. We're going to go to this diagram next. There is a little nerve that sits right here at the junction between the eardrum, the inner ear, the eustachian tube, and what this sinus cavity means. Okay, that's the plumbing. So this is the pipe, the smaller pipes, right? The eustachian tube in here. This is the bigger one. And the way God designed us is the ears are supposed to drain into the sinuses and the lymphatics and the throat and the lungs. And then all of that is supposed to drain into the stomach, where there is tons of acidity, tons of probiotics, tons of good guys that kill off the bad guys. So yes, stuff is going to come into the ear for your kiddo. And here's the other thing. Teething, irritation, these things can happen over here. And what happens is we can end up with inflammation on both sides of this equation, and there's more fluid in the inner ear. But that's actually still okay as long as this very important little muscle right here, which is just really fun to say, the tensor veli palatini. So it's a Latin term called a TVP is its nickname. And as long as that muscle can continue to move, it can continue to massage and move that fluid out of the ear. And if it's got more fluid in there because there's a cold or teething or a seasonal shift, well, then you would want that tensor veli palatini to move, sorry for bad handwriting, move more. Well, we're not done explaining the neuroscience. We got one more piece of this. These nerves over here, C1, C2 nerve roots, mean that there is these spinal nerves that branch from the very top of the spinal cord right around the brainstem and the base of the skull, and it's the tone or the function of the nerves that controls the movement of the muscles. That's how every part of the body works, including the inner ear and this little TVP muscle. And so what happens is there's this neuromuscular misalignment, neuromuscular tension, and neurological interference that occurs. Now, those three things, neuromuscular tension, I'll go in the right order, neuromuscular misalignment, neuromuscular tension, and neuromuscular interference of communication and function, there's a catch-all word for that, and it's called subluxation. Subluxation, those three components make up subluxation, and that shuts down plumbing and promotes inflammation. There's a whole nother layer to this neurology that you can read about on our website about subluxation. Once that neuromuscular tension builds in, not only can the fluid not drain, but the whole nervous system goes into what's called sympathetic fight or flight dominance, which is a very pro-inflammatory state, which limits the immune system and the respiratory system's ability to get rid of infections, to get rid of inflammation, and to get rid of congestion. So that's why chronic recurrent ear infections are a vicious cycle of this neuromuscular, neuroimmune issue. And so what causes the final thing we got to go through on this iPad with this video is, all right, so subluxation, first time hearing about it, misalignment, tension, poor plumbing, inflammation, neurological interference, that's one word. Subluxation does all those things. And the first place it sets up shop, generally for babies and infants and toddlers, is with chronic ear infections. It's one of the first signs, sure signs of subluxation being present in what's called that upper cervical C1, C2. It can be in the cranial system and elsewhere, but really we find subluxation all the time in our acute and chronic ear infection patients. at C1 and C2. So the last question is, well, what causes subluxation in the first place? And we see three things. First off, that baby's neck may be misaligned because of a breech or an in utero constraint presentation. And second, there is birth intervention. Forceps, vacuum, induction, and emergency C-sections are all clinically correlated with a much higher incidence of not just 1 or 2 ear infections, but specifically chronic ear infections. And number 3, now we're back to our equation from before, which is toxins, dairy, gluten, sugar, that sort of stuff. But here's why I wanted to put this all together for you. Most families have figured out right away that the pediatrician, like, I can't just be, there's got to be more to it than that. If your mom got, you listen to the pediatrician say, they just shorter horizontal eustachian tubes. You're like, I don't know. Seems like maybe there's more going on than that. You were right. And so you probably went down the road of cleaning up diet, getting rid of dairy, getting rid of sugar, that sort of stuff. And maybe your kiddo is better, but not all the way clear. Maybe they still get sick too often, they still get congested too often, they still get chronic ear infections too often. Well, then you know for sure that it's subluxation. And when we dig into those case histories, we almost always find these two things. Often they even lead to something called torticollis or plagiocephaly. We have some great articles about those things on our website. And if your child had one or both of those, well, then they're definitely on the path to chronic ear infection challenges as well. So what I wanted to do with this video is not just break down the science, the anatomy, the physiology, and be able to contrast against the medical theory and the natural theory behind chronic ear infections and get to the real root neuroscience, the real deep down root cause. But once you know that, the final question is, all right, what do I do about that? Well, the first step you want to take from this video right away is go to our website. If you're local to us, come see us at PwC Chiropractic. And if you're not, go to our PX Docs directory, plug in your city and your zip code, and call and get a consult and examination scheduled with a PX doctor today. Now, the first thing you're going to find, and I highly encourage you to go from this video, find the link, go to the website, and read the whole article about chronic ear infections. We have another awesome article, Natural Remedies, which obviously starts with chiropractic for ear infections. But the reason you want to start with chiropractic is you've got to get that subluxation out of the way. So the first thing we do is we dig into your child's case history and we find out, okay, are we dealing with some of these subluxation triggers and elements? And the second thing we do with all of our new patients struggling with chronic ear infections is we run what's called an insight scan, and we look for, and we can actually measure, quantify, and locate that neurological interference. We can measure and find that inflammation and that tension within the nerves, within the muscles, and we can literally put it on the map and say, there it is, that's what's causing it. And then we make safe, gentle, easy, you won't even believe how easy they are adjustments to get that fluid moving. We can make these soft, gentle, light touch pediatric adjustments to get the fluid out of the ear, to get the nervous system back to balance, to get everything back to the way it needs to be, to not only get through chronic ear infections, but best of all, stay ahead of them and prevent them in the future. We don't treat, we don't cure, we take care of the actual root cause and the dysfunction within the nerves, the muscles, and the immune system. If you're looking to get all the way to the root cause of your kiddo's chronic ear infections, then get to the website, learn more, check out more, watch any more videos or read any more articles we have on the site if you need more information. And the moment you're ready to get your kiddo healing and through to the other side of these challenges without drugs and surgery, go to the directory, find your doctor, book your appointment right there, give them a call, get scheduled, and get your child healthy again. God bless, be well. Hope this video helped you and served you. And if it did, please like it, please follow us, subscribe to us if you found it on YouTube, and please share this video with other parents who you know their kiddos are going through ear infections. We would love this information to go far and wide because it's just time that the whole theory of medicine that says, it's just bad luck and, a bad IKEA coffee table, it's time we replace that with the real truth and the real neuroscience. So please share this video as well.